Good morning still. We have a few minutes still this morning, so I'd like to introduce today's session sponsor, Brown and Brown, and on behalf of Brown and Brown, is Andy.
Didn't know introduce or cut an introduction, but here we go. I think I've probably seen most of you. You've stopped by our table outside, but for those of you that I have not met yet, I am Amy Bryan. I work with Brown and Brown of Detroit. We are the 5th largest insurance broker in the U.S. We specialize in commercial insurance, personal lines insurance, and employee benefits. I actually am on the personal line side, so I help individuals with their home auto liability, really focusing on that risk management piece. We do yearly risk reviews with our clients and to make sure that they're adequately covered. So if you have not stopped by our table out there, we have a few little goodies and things that people have thought were really cool. So stop by and say hello to us. And it is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker for the session, Mr. Greg Martin. He's the Executive Director of Disaster Relief at Work, which is near and dear to my heart as being in insurance. Originally from Otisville, Michigan, Greg graduated with a bachelor's degree from Asbury University. In the following 13 years, he led successful dynamic youth programs around the country. In May of 2012, Greg founded the nonprofit organization Disaster Relief at Work, a charity dedicated to responding to communities devastated by natural disasters. In just over 10 years, DRAW has responded to 110 natural disasters around the U.S. with relief supplies and volunteer services. DRAW has expanded with multiple satellites around the country so they can respond within 24 hours of any given tornado, flood, or hurricane. In 2018, Greg opened the Waterford-based coffee shop, The Coffee Bucket, under a business model where all revenue from the shop goes to support DRAW, and all staff double as on-the-ground responders after the storm. Finally, Greg has spearheaded multiple philanthropic initiatives over the past 5 years, including a campaign to retire $8 million of medical debt held by Detroit residents. Oh, yeah. A drive to provide $50,000 in supplies for refugees at the U.S.-Mexican border, and the distribution of more than $500,000 worth of food that fed in-need families the first 6 months of the 2020 pandemic. Introduce Greg.
I didn't write that.
If I had, it would have been much longer. So, my name is Greg. You got the introduction. I just want to tell you, I've been to 2 sessions so far. This is I've been to 3 sessions. Not kidding. Got to count them all, right? The 3 sessions had 3 experts speaking on things that they're fluent in and wise about. You have come to a session that is not. I am the director of a disaster relief agency, and as we talked about putting together a session, I thought maybe I can share some stuff that I've learned from my role in my job about content creation, marketing, and social media. Now, the title I submitted when I said, I'll do a session was actually, it's been shortened. That seems like a long title above me, but the original title is, what are we talking about when we talk about content creation, marketing, and social media? And so they made it a little shorter so it would fit on a screen. And so, but really the spirit behind this is I really want to talk about what are we talking when we talk about these things. You maybe have showed up in it. If you were like me and you had signed up for a session, it's possible that some of you went to DRAW's LinkedIn, to DRAW's Facebook, and it's DRAW. Hey, this guy's going to talk about social media and content creation. I'm going to check this guy out. And you may have gone to those pages and been completely underwhelmed and thought, I have way more to teach than this guy has. And you're probably right. But I want to talk about what is it that we're talking about when we talk about this, because I think there's an ethos to it that might help steer us in some of the decisions we have to make when it comes to our content creation marketing, and social media. And I even hate all three of those terms. I'm going to debunk them as we go through this. But before I do that, I want to talk about the soul. I'm going to do that by telling a story. In 2021, February was the month, and there was a deep freeze in the southern parts of the United States. Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana had temperatures below 32 degrees. We're used to that here. They're not used to that there. It was called Winter Storm Uri, and the deep freeze that happened in the south caused the entire electrical grid in the state of Texas to go down. You guys remember this? It was about 20 months ago. And part of the reason why it sticks in people's head, and it's just so dumb, and this isn't even partisan, but like it's when Ted Cruz went to Cancun, right? Yeah, that's the thing that people remember about it. So this all happened and the electrical grid went down. And not only did the grid go down, but so many water pipes burst and exploded because the water froze because they're not used to warming their pipe. It was a disaster. And I happen to work for an organization called Disaster Relief at Work. So we typically don't do deep freezes in the South. Typically we do hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, but this was one that you watched everything kind of unfold. My wife and I said, we should really do something about this. And so we put out onto our personal pages, we said, look, through Draw, what we're going to do is we're going to sponsor a pallet of water. Because everybody in the South needed clean water because clean water was not available to them. In this one small avenue in the United States, for this short amount of time, it was as if it was a developing nation. Clean water was needed in that place. And so we said, we will sponsor a pallet of bottled water. And honestly, to ship and buy a pallet of bottled water, it's more expensive than you'd think to figure that out. And so we said, we'll do it. We found the price, we found the distributor. We said, we're going to sponsor this. Anybody who wants to do it with us, you're welcome to join us. And what happened blew my mind. Like we had within 24 hours, 60 of our friends. This wasn't even like we put it on Draw's, any of their social media. We just put it out kind of like a personal thing. And the Draw can figure out the logistics of how to get the water there. So now we have the funding and the ability to get 60 pallets of clean water to Texas for Winter Storm Uri. Now this is on a Thursday, and as it turned out, Winter Storm Uri kept temperatures below 32 degrees all the way through Sunday midday that weekend. So we have these 60 things. Now, one of the other things that was a problem logistically is they aren't prepared for that cold with their roads. So much freight and trucks that would bring those pallets of clean water to Texas wouldn't drive them in because their trucks would be inside of the road with water in them. Draw has a warehouse in Mississippi, and so I said, well, here's what we'll do. I will take myself and 2 other team members. We'll hook up Draw's trailer. I'll tow it with my truck. Strong F-Ford 250, right? Yeah. So I went online, what is the tow capacity of a 250? I'm Googling, right? And I do the math, and I'm like, okay, I think we can fit 5 pallets of clean bottled water into a trailer that the truck could tow. And so we had a distribution point in East Dallas where we knew that the neighborhoods needed clean water. And so our plan was we're going to take water there. I didn't want to pick up the water here and drive all the way down with that because that's going to impact gas mileage. And so I wanted to buy it further south. But as we all know, further south had a problem with water. So the furthest south we could buy anything was Nashville, Tennessee. And so I contacted the people there. We ordered and had ready 5 pallets of bottled water that we were going to pick up. We were going to drive to Nashville, pick it up, head to our location in Jackson, Mississippi, stay there that night. The next morning, get up, 6 hours down I-20 to Dallas. We were going to deliver the clean water on Sunday, just as everybody wanted. And then all the rest was we would figure out the following week. We would hire freight companies to do that, but we wanted to be on the ground quick. That's what and nimbility is our big word. It's not a real word, but it's a big word we care about at Disaster Relief at Work. We want to be nimble and be there quick. So that's the plan. So we go to execute the plan. We drive to Nashville, Tennessee. We go to the water distributor. We pick up the water. We're loading the water in the trailer, and the guy helping us load says, "You sure your trailer's gonna make it?" And I walk outside the trailer after we're loading it in, and the springs, like if the trailer could talk, it would say, "Ow!" Like it was. So we redistributed some of the water into the truck bed, but it was only a little bit. So we were pulling, basically 5 tons of water with the truck. And he's like, you think your truck's gonna make it? And I said, hope so. So we drive 6 hours and boy, gas mileage. Like gas mileage when you pull a trailer with a truck is like 10, 9 miles. This was like 4. This is like put a piece of tape over it. Don't look at it, right? We drive to Jackson. We stay in Jackson that night in our warehouse. The next morning we're getting up. It's a Sunday morning. We're gonna drive from Jackson, Mississippi to Dallas, Texas to deliver clean water to people who haven't had clean water in a week. That was the plan. We get in the truck. We're driving I-20. And it's rough because I didn't realize this from Jackson to Dallas, I-20 does this a lot. And so when you're pulling 5 tons, it's like my truck is constantly going to second gear, and I'm trying to manage the engine. I'm worried about the engine. This is my baby. This is my truck. Her name is Leanne, right? I'm concerned. But I'm watching it and we're almost there. We're 2 hours away from Dallas. And all of a sudden I feel my truck do. And my first thought was my engine. Until one of our team members said, look out the window, and I look out the right window, and the trailer, which is dual axle, has a tire that is rolling away down the highway off the tire. And so there's an exit, right? I pull up the exit immediately. And there's a gas station, pull into the gas station. We are missing a tire. We are in Texas where there is no power on a Sunday, right? I mean, like Texas on a Sunday anyway, what's open? With no power, all right, now we got a problem. I walk into the gas station. Behind the counter is a very lovely 17-year-old lady. I said, would you happen to know of any tire shops that might be open on a Sunday here? And she just gave me a look like I had spoken like Arabic. And there's a guy in line behind me and he says, what kind of tires do you need? Trailer tires? Yeah. He says, let me come look. So we walk out to the trailer. This guy's name was Jack. Jack, what's the trailer? He's like, you know what? I got 2 tires in my place that would fit this trailer. I'll be back in 10 minutes. He drives away with the Jeep, comes back. This guy, I'll never see Jack again. 2 tires with all the tools, jacks up this 4-ton trailer, puts 2 new tires on a trailer. Within an hour, we're back on the road. Yeah, right? Like insane. Good Samaritan. I'll never see this guy again. And so I call the guy in Dallas. I'm like, we're back on the road. We'll be there before, the distribution center closes. We get back on the road. Here's what happened the first tire came off. The trailer had bounced off the ground. It bent metal. We put new tires on. It just rubbed right against it. 60 seconds later, the second tire, boom, explodes. Pull off the exit. And we drove 22 hours. We're so close. 60 people had matched and donated, and we had the water. We had it all set up. There are people who need this water that we were delivering in Dallas. I don't know what we're gonna do, man. And I'm just looking at this thing, and I called the guy in Dallas and said, dude, I'm sorry. I said, I gotta figure out what we're gonna do. I can't get you there. I can't get this to you. He says, well, we did get a half load we weren't expecting. So we're okay for now. You figure your thing out. I'll put the word out, maybe somebody, we'll see what happens. We get off the phone, no promises. I'm in an area of Texas I've never heard of, Longview, Texas. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm going to start Googling what might be open, what we do, a tow service, whatever. And I get a call. I answer the phone and she says, is this Greg? And I said, yeah, this is Greg. I said, Greg, this is Stephanie. Stephanie, how are you? She said, I was told to give you a call. I said, well, I don't know who told you to give me a call. It was a connection of a connection of a connection from the guy from Dallas. She said, I was told to give you a call. I said, well, Stephanie, I've got 5 pallets of clean water. We're on the side of the road. Trailer's shot. So I don't really know what we're gonna do, but I know that we brought this water to help. If you know anybody that needs water or could come get, they're welcome to come get it. And Stephanie says, wow. So what's going on? She says, well, my husband has a small church in Tyler, Texas, about 20 minutes from Longview, Texas. She said Tyler knew that this winter storm was coming, and so a week ago, they shut all the water off in the town because they didn't want their pipes to burst. So nobody in this town has had clean water in a week, and it was really starting to damage and hurt a lot of our families. And so this morning, 50 of us during church had this prayer time, and we just had this intense prayer time where we said, God, send us a miracle. This area needs water, right? And she's like, 10 minutes like this. She said, there are 12 trucks coming to you right now. And 20 minutes later, as we're sitting on the side of the road, these 12 trucks, and we're doing, this thing to load all the trucks by hand. Okay. I'm overwhelmed by this story. And so as I'm sitting there, I'm like, I have to tell this story. So I'm sitting on the side of the road and I write on my personal Facebook page, because Facebook can let you do more than 280 characters. So, and I'm verbose, you can already tell. So I write the entire story of the people who matched the donations and the people who had need and how we were almost there. And we thought we knew who we had to serve in Dallas and who needed the help. And I said, and Jess, I said, and God blew out our time. And we fixed it and he just blew it out again. So here we are on the side of the road and we thought we knew where we had to be and who we had to serve. But the people we had to serve are right where we are. We are exactly where we need to be at this moment. And I shared just that picture and that story. Now, I have friends. People started to share it because it's a damn good story, right? I mean, then they share it, and they share it again, and they share it again, and they share it again. And meanwhile, I'm getting the empty trailer is now being towed. My team and I are going back to Jackson. We're not going to Dallas. We're gonna stay there that night. And that night, it probably got shared 250 times on Facebook. And then, I don't know if there's a tipping point, but then it just kept getting shared. It kept getting shared. And by Wednesday, at some point, I was like, I got smart and I was like, I need to edit this and put Draw's website on here. And so I did, and then it continued to get shared probably 3,800 times. It got picked up by radio stations around the country on their Facebook page. It was shared a ton. And I reflected on that. I was talking to our team about like, this is insane. And they said, well, and what I came to the realization is that story is what Draw does, but it's also what Draw is. It's the soul of what we do. It's the spirit of what we do. In that moment, in that crazy story, is the spirit of why we do what we do. To organize a ton of people, as many people as we can, to serve people who have a need at the moment that they need it and deliver it at that moment. That is the spirit of what we do. Now, why am I telling this story when we're talking about social media, other than the fact that it was shared? All you gotta do is break down on the side of the road, and then people will share your story. That's not what I'm trying to tell you. In that moment, we shared the spirit, the soul of what we do. And each of you, if you're in this nonprofit management conference, work somewhere that has a soul. Maybe the soul of that is the moment when you can grant a high school student a scholarship that would allow them to go to a school that maybe they wouldn't have been able to go to if it had not been for your foundation. Maybe your organization is someone who finds permanent housing for someone who's had a hard time landing because of economic hardships and circumstances. Whatever the soul of your organization is, that needs to be communicated in all of the content creation, marketing, and social media that you do. That needs to be the center. Because when I said that the title of this whole thing is, what are we talking about when we talk about content creation, marketing, and social media? What we're talking about is like, we have a thing that we do, and then we have our means of communication. And so we have to make a decision, what are we going to communicate? What are we going to communicate? We know the goal of our organization. We all can probably recite the mission statement of our organization. Our entire staff, I make them learn it and be able to recite it backwards and forwards. Draw a response to natural disasters around the U.S. in the first 24 to 48 hours with supplies and volunteers to help people who are at their rock bottom take one step back toward normalcy. I will quiz all of my staff on that. They will be able to recite it word for word. They better or they're fired. Okay, right? That is our mission statement. But behind the words, behind the mission statement is the spirit of what we do. Okay, so we all have a goal that we have to do. Now, let me tell you another story that is less glamorous. And it's something that I think most of you can relate to, which was, once the pandemic started, we all, or at least our organization, much like many other nonprofit organizations, rely on funds that sometimes come in through events. How many people have organizations where you rely on event revenue for your organization? Okay. Some of those events require some sort of registration. For us, it was a 5K. Maybe it's a gala. Maybe it's a dinner. Who knows what it is, right? But you have your event. And sometimes with that event, people don't sign up right when you want them to. You think you're gonna announce this event and the droves of people that want to support you will sign up immediately, and you're like, oh, there's our whole registration. But usually what happens is you do that, and then you get your first 10, and then you have to communicate it again. And now it's in our newsletter. And now it's on our Twitter page. And now it's on our Facebook page. And then we reshare the original post on the Facebook page, just in case you didn't see it the first time. You're saying it over and over and over, because we know that people have to hear things over and over and over again. And so the first 5K that we did after the pandemic, you know, it was in September. You know, our 5K is not our big, you know, like, if the 5K went away, would our organization die? No. But we have an expectation of a certain amount of revenue that we expect from that event. And so we need a certain amount of registrations, and we were very, very short of that. But people were hesitant. Yeah, should it be around other people? Like, we're gonna wear masks when we run? I mean, it was just, it was the whole thing, right? And we all know it. We were all balancing all kinds of crazy COVID things in the middle of that. So we were doing that too. And there was a 2-month stretch before our first 5K back from the pandemic where we were posting a lot. And one of the things that I started to do, and it startled me, is I met someone and they went to our page and they said, man, you guys raise a lot of money. Wow, that's your first, I mean, first of all, it's not a lot, thank you. But secondly, why was this? They said, well, I went and started following your page. And it seems like you talk about the 5K. And so what I started to do is every 2 months, have our team that's anybody responsible for communication audit our communication. We would write down, hey, here's our Facebook log, here's our Instagram log, here's our Twitter log, here's our newsletter log. We don't have a TikTok that's old, right? Whatever, right? So whatever our communication streams are, every 2 months, we audit what we're saying. And if the things that we're saying are like, if the ratio of it is out of balance, and we're not talking about the soul, things that touch the soul of what we do, then we need to self-correct. Because the things that people connect with are the soul. No one's ever wanted to respond to a disaster because we advertised a 5K. No one's wanted to help a hurricane victim because we had an event. They want to serve people at their rock bottom after a hurricane because they see that we are doing that and we connect with them. We want to be able to make a difference. And making a difference might mean running a 5K, but I can't talk about the 5K more than making a difference. Does that make sense? And so we will do an audit regularly. What are we talking? Now how we communicate it, that's for better people than me. And if you came here today and go, should I use Reels or should I not use Reels? Should I use Instagram stories, or what? Should it be multiple photos? Should there be people in the photos? Only good looking people or bad looking people too? Like how and what am I posting? Like that's going to be for smarter people. But what I want to say is, whatever you're communicating, maybe you are killing it on TikTok. That'd be great. That'd be great for your organization. That's your audience, and that would be great. But what I would say to you is, make sure that however you're communicating it, whatever you're communicating, it's at the soul of what you're about. State your goal, see the spirit that's behind that goal, and then build your communication around that, and don't be seduced by the numbers. What can happen is that I put the whole thing up here. This is a map of, no, it's on our website. This is not the greatest, it's stuff on top of each other. I've mentioned the intro mentioned that we responded to 110 disasters in 11 years. So we have a map of every place that we've been, and that is on the front page of our website. And the reason we put it on the front page of our website is because that's the soul of what we do. That's where we've been. That's who we've served. And each one, if you go on our website, you can click on Dayton, Ohio, and you go click, oh, 2019, there was a tornado that went through there. 14 people died. The Dross delivered $80,000 worth of supplies to sent teams for 3 weeks and cleaned up X number of homes. Like, we have those things on there, but that's always a static thing, and it's continually updated because we want to keep that at the center of what we do. This is our history. This is where we've come from. This is how we've built from here. And this is the thing we value. Doesn't mean we don't communicate the other thing. We got to raise money to make things happen. So if there's a 5K, we're going to talk about the 5K. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to get in the habit of communicating things that are off center from the goal of what we do. We want to talk about our soul, we want to have a goal, and we want to recognize the whole. Here's the other audit we do. At our organization, every 6 months, We do an audit of all the things that Draw does, all the programs that Draw does. May not seem like a lot, disaster relief, how many programs are there? Well, you'd be surprised. We have volunteer groups that come in that pack buckets, multiple supplies or 5-gallon buckets. We assemble them into kits, and those are a lot of the things that we send in. We also have volunteer groups that work with our green initiative. We recycle plastic. We turn the plastic into plastic yarn. We have about 100 volunteer crocheters that crochet bags that are flood cleanup bags that are made completely of recycled plastic. In 3.5 years, we've recycled 6 tons of plastic that could have been in landfills that we've turned into things that could be used after floods. These bags are great. They're very fashionable. But also, if we take them to flood victims, they can take their first floor of their basement, things that are wet, that are gross. It's better than boxes. It's cheaper than Rubbermaid bins. They hold 50 pounds. They don't absorb the contaminated water. They're great after floods. And so we use them. And so it's labor intensive. So a lot of people will recycle their bags with us. They'll help us make the plastic yarn or plarn. Nimbility and plarn. I'm making a whole lexicon for you. Okay, right? So that's a thing that we do. We also have the coffee shop that was noted here. So we have a whole thing around the coffee shop because all the revenue from coffee shop supports Draw. But if all we do is talk about coffee and not Draw, they're like, oh, so your mission statement is coffee. No. We have a map in our coffee shop. The good looking picture of me walking through a flooded street, that's in our coffee shop. We always want to point people back to our mission. Because the more we get away from the mission, the more we start to get caught up in how many likes did we get? How many retweets did we get? Did enough people share it? We want more shares. How do we get more interaction online? If your question is, how do we get more interaction online? I would challenge you to say, you might be asking the wrong question. The right question is, are we communicating what we do? Because if you stick with what you do, if your mission in your heart's in the right place, and you communicate that, then people who care about that will come alongside. You don't have to worry about selling yourself. Just be the best organization you can and sticking to the soul of who you are. And when you do that, then people will start to come alongside and follow and serve. And how can I volunteer? Well, there's a volunteer opportunity here. Would you like to play with plastic? Would you like to pack some buckets? Would you like to be on the road with us and wield a chainsaw? We try to cut up trees after tornadoes to help people clear their driveways so they get in and out of their homes after a major tornado. There are options that people can do. And if you just communicate that, then the right people, I never wanted to sell someone who didn't want to buy it in the first place, right? Here's my, Terry here. Okay, Terry's not here. I don't really like networking that much. I don't like having to sell myself to somebody that like, well, I'm going to try to sell. I'm going to sell to you. Here's my thing. Here's my thing. Like, here, let me just meet you. I'd rather buy you a beer, hang out, talk about how bad the lines are, right? And over the time, we'll learn what each other do. And if it's something that I connect with, well, what can I do to help? I mentioned that there's other philanthropic, or in my intro, there's other philanthropic things that I care about. I'm not just a disaster relief guy at my essence. I care about other things, and disaster relief is my main passion. But like, I like to serve refugees. I sponsor an Afghan refugee family that came over after the war was over. And as difficult and gut-wrenching as that is, it's also one of the most gratifying things we do. Okay, right? So there are people in the world who will connect with your thing. So don't worry about how much engagement can I get? The people will come alongside. If you're doing something worthwhile that's changing people's lives, people will come alongside. Whatever content you create, however you market yourself, stay true and close to the soul of what you do, meet the goal, and recognize the whole. Ready for one more thing that rhymes? After Hurricane Ian. 2 weeks ago, so Hurricane Ian hit, and if you followed it all, it was a category 4 that was on the verge of being a category 5. It made an eastward turn a little earlier than it was supposed to, if you followed that hurricane, right? So because it made that turn, it was actually stronger when it hit land. It was supposed to go straight north. And right before it got to about the Tampa area, it turned east. And it hit Punta Gorda, Fort Myers, Arcadia. For us, I talk about nimbility. Here's a challenge of the work we do. We're in Michigan, we got a place in Mississippi. But when Florida gets hit, it's hard to get there 24 hours after. Now, luckily, hurricanes give us a little head start. So on that trip, we had our first load. I was taking the first load then. Freight company took the second load, and then we had other people bring third load, fifth. You know, but we sent a lot of stuff, a lot of relief aid immediately. But I'm usually the first one. So we're going south, and I was going to stage in Valdosta. and let the storm go through and then come after. But then because the storm went east, I was able to actually get there earlier. So I was there in the 24 hours with our first load. We delivered in Punta Gorda at a place called Deep Creek Community Church, where people just drove through and picked up all the cleanup supplies, because just north of there was Arcadia that was completely underwater, and we had brought a ton of flood cleanup stuff along with tarps because so many roofs were damaged. All right. Later on, I ended up leading one of the teams. On the picture you have there is a guy named Jacob. On that team, Jacob and I were the two. We'll call them. I like to use the word sawyers, but people are like, that's not a word. Okay, chainsaw guys. We were the chainsaw guys. We had a team that would cut, so someone would say, hey, we have a chainsaw, or we have a tree down on our back porch. We have a tree down in our driveway. We have a tree down, and they would call in, and these jobs would get, case managed. And so our team would just go out. Our team would be cutting up, move, cutting up, move. That was our job. The thing about this is, it's an inexact science. Every storm is an inexact science, because as soon as somebody said, hey, we have help if you need help, somebody will go, oh, I need help, even if they maybe comparatively don't need as much help. Does that make sense? Am I getting right? So our case management center, I got a call from a guy that was in Arcadia that said, I have 2 oak trees in the backyard that need to be cut up and brought to the front. So 2 oak trees down. Okay, so our team gets our whatever, we show up. We drive up 2 vehicles, there's 8 of us total, pull all the equipment out. Jacob and I walk around back. No trees there. Like, are you seeing, Jacob, are you seeing this? You see any trees? No, and we're like walking around. Meanwhile, the rest of our team is pulling the stuff out. One of our team members goes on the front door, knocks on the front door. Guy walks out. We're like, hey, we're withdraw. We got this job order. You said you need 2 oak trees, cut up and moved to the front. It's like, yeah, follow me. We run back, open our stuff, and we're standing, and we're like, okay. And he's like, yeah, this one and this one. Yeah. And we were like, well, that's not what we're here to do. Like, we're not a tree service. We're like a relief agency. We had to it was super condescending. We had to be like, that's not what we're supposed to do. Now, the reality is we had the stuff to do it. We had the saws, we had the chains, we had the tow straps that we could have set things up. We could have cut his trees down, moved them. But that was not the role of why we were there. That was not the point of why our team was there. We were there to do relief stuff. So the reason I tell that story is just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you're able to doesn't mean it's how you should do things. And I tell that story because with social media, just because you could get more likes on something doesn't mean it's the reason you should use social media for that. Okay? What you want to do is go, all right, what's the essence of what we do? And look at social media not as a totality of your communication, as a totality of who you are. It doesn't identify you. It's a tool to be used. The chainsaws and the chains and the tow straps and the stuff we brought after Hurricane Ian were tools to be used to serve people who were victimized by Hurricane Ian. And that's why we could have used them for other things, but that's not the point. The same thing with Twitter, with Instagram. You could go for the likes. You could, there are things that you can post from your organization, memes that would just make people laugh, dad jokes that just would kill. That tangentially might have something to do with your organization, right? But the reason you have those things at your disposal is because you want to communicate the soul of your organization. You want to communicate the goal of your mission statement. You want to communicate the whole of everything that you do. Your social media is not the essence of everything you are. It is, it serves a role. You tell I have a preacher background, right? And so for your organization, whether you're the director or on the communications team or in the support team or donor relations or whatever it is, when you're trying to come up with content, the thing I would want to urge you is make sure your content most accurately represents the soul of your organization. I mentioned that we do an audit of every piece of our organization. Anytime that someone's on our communications team, which is not big, it's 3 people. 3 people oversee our newsletter, our Facebook, our Instagram, our dormant Twitter account, right? Like, we have 3 people that oversee those things. The thing I want to make sure of is that everybody who does communications touches the whole of our organization. Because here's the other thing that can happen. This is side. It's not part of my presentation. It's free. No charge for this part. Okay. When you have an organization, if someone's working on something and they see that your newsletter is always spotlighting another part of your organization and never spotlights the thing that they're doing, that's a good way to build tensions that don't need to exist within your organization. So when you audit, all of the things that you do and all the things that you communicate, you should use that audit to go, all right, let's make sure that we highlight Anne, who's working in this corner of the warehouse, because we want to make sure that she knows she's valued, because we talk about the things we care about. When I meet someone who's a new grandmother, grandfather, I can guarantee, and I got 2 volunteers that I'm thinking of right now that just had a new grandson, and I've seen them 6 times since the grandson was born, and each time they tell me the same 10 minutes about the grandson, and they show me pictures of the grandson, because we talk about what we care about. And that's why the content we make, the things that we market, and the things we put on our social media platforms matter. Because as a reader, as a listener, as a consumer of those things, we also know that you talk about the things that you care about. So if you're not talking about the things that are at the soul of your organization, then I know you're a fraud. If you're not talking about the things that are making an impact in the world that you've devoted your life to in this position, in this job, whatever it is, like, I know that you're quiet quitting, is that the word? I don't know what the phrase is, right? We have to talk about the things we care about, which is why social media and content and marketing is important. Because what we're talking about when we talk about it is, are we bought into the things that we're doing, and are we making the impact that we say we do? So if you came to learn about Reels, if you came to learn about Instagram stories, or what site gets best retweets, I'm sorry to disappoint you, because I'm not a social media expert. I'm not a content creation expert. I was going to say I was going to take down this phrase. Content creation, I just think that's kind of bullshit. You don't create content. You identify. Your organization should already be doing life-impacting work. The story that I told in the beginning about sitting on the side of the road, that was people who supported what we did. That was us doing the work. It was a miracle in happening. I didn't have to all right, how do I frame this right? How do I put this how it needs to be? Should I use a panel? I just put a picture of a broken tire and told the story. You don't have to create the content. You should be identifying the content and telling people about it. You have to come up with a marketing plan. Just identify the things that need to be marketed and then tell that story. You don't have to worry about which social media platform is the best. You might go, I hate Instagram. Fine. Don't use Instagram. How do I make our organization? But I don't use it. If you don't use it and you're in charge of it, then don't do it. Do what's authentic to the mission that you're called to do. Be the soul of the thing you care about. And then I promise you, the people that are meant to come alongside are going to come alongside, and you'll be as strong or stronger than if you tried to do it some other way. I don't know what I'm talking about. This is my best advice. That is the end of my presentation. I will open it up for questions that I will not be able to answer. We check the clock. We have 8 minutes for questions if anybody has any, or if we're going to go with food items. Disaster recovery? The money. I went after, in 2011 in April, Alabama was hit by a series of EF5 tornadoes that wiped out multiple towns. And it was on TV, it was on social media. I saw plenty of images. And like many, I sat in my living room and I just thought to myself, we should do something. I didn't know who we was, I didn't know what do something meant. But I texted 100 friends and I'm like, hey, if I go down and help out in Alabama, anybody want to go? And for the 2 days, 14 friends gave up a week. And we drove down and we did stuff similar to what Draw does now, at a much different scale, obviously. The drive home, I stared out the window, I was like, that was the drug, man. And I started doing that over and over until finally I was like, actually, this is my life. So there we go. Hungry? All right. If it was helpful, though, I'll give me the best review possible. Because I get an extra, I don't know, how much money do I get for good review? $5. Okay, $5. I get $5 for good review, yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.